Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Marketing Insights with me, Yasha Harari. I wanted to welcome all the new listeners and all the folks who've been there before. I hope you find this information useful, and I hope that you can put it to good use for your marketing. This is a video I make. I make videos for marketing to educate people in the marketing field about how to improve their marketing performance based on data-driven findings, lots of scientific experiments, and a massive amount of experience and interesting anecdotes and other fun and useful pieces of information. So, welcome all. Today I want to do a quick review for those of you who want to stay ahead of the game in 2019 when it comes to optimizing your websites and getting better performance out of them. How can you make your digital properties stay ahead of the trends in 2019 when there's so many new things affecting the market, right? Well, have you ever thought about doing something like this? How to optimize for voice search, right? If you take a look at the Google search results for that question, you'll see that there's a number of really great articles there. And I'm just going to quickly go through parts of the first few that I find very useful, actually. We'll start with the one that's actually right at the top there from Neil Patel, who wrote an article about how to optimize for voice search, and it ranks very highly. No surprise there. He optimized the page very well, and has an authoritative domain and all the other parts that are required. And we'll go over what those pieces are. By the way, you'll find those results are findable. That top result is findable when you do the voice search for that question. So if you click on this little icon here and do how to optimize for voice search, you'll come up with that question most of the time. For example, how to optimize for voice search. And there you go. You can see the results right there. Neil Patel, how to optimize for voice search, and then from Search Engine Land, and then rank number 3 is Backlinko, voice search SEO, how to optimize in 2018. And their next one is the definitive back guide to voice search. So if we take a quick look, I'm not going to go through their entire articles because they're rather lengthy, and also because, I'm just going to cover parts of them, and I'll put the links in the articles in the description below. So if you want to see, you can obviously just jump right to those articles and read them fully. And what I want to show you here is just to remind you that voice search is first and foremost based on the technology that being used these days is based on something called natural language processing, or NLP. And that's what they use to recognize voice texture and interests and behavior and figure out the patterns of your speech to understand exactly what you're saying and what you're looking for when you ask a question on voice search. So here you can see the graph right here, or the picture, whatever you want to call it, and it shows you a little chart of how information flows. So your speech analysis, in the phonology area, goes into morphological and lexical analysis. Under morphology, moves into parsing under syntax, moves through contextual reasoning under semantics, moves into application reasoning and execution under reasoning, and then it moves back through the cycle from reasoning all the way back through semantics with utterance planning, syntax with syntactic realization, morphology once again with morphological realization, phonology with speech synthesis, and all of these sit, essentially on, databases or wells of data, or any kind of containers. Under the phonology bucket, if you will, it's the pronunciation model. Under the morphology bucket, it's the morphological rules, which govern the above two morphological uses. The syntax bucket is controlled by the lexicon and grammar system, essentially. The semantics bucket is controlled by the discourse context, and the reasoning bucket is controlled by domain knowledge. Okay, and you put that sort of horseshoe loop of information through your voice search system based on these buckets of databases, essentially. And what you get is a system that can recognize speech patterns and texture and everything else and context and meaning and give you, in theory, a proper answer to the question. Now, they learn your accents, they learn your language, they learn the way you speak, etc., etc. That's, all these things are all part of the smart technology that they do. And Neil goes through really a very interesting, sort of demonstration of how he searched for himself, searched for a celebrity, searched for himself, found differences in the voice search. There are some areas where there are clearly still flaws. It's not perfect, right? But it is getting better. And there's a lot of information here about what he discovered in his particular article. But I really wanted to look at, this particular graph on this page because this is really the foundation model for voice search. And he gets into conversational, phrases and longer than long tail. It's long tail plus other words because it's voice search. And he goes over some of that. I wanted to skip here to the next article, Search Engine Land. They also discuss this optimized voice search topic. And just like Neil, they use the same graph here from KPCB. It's a pie chart that shows the voice query breakdown of observed data on Hound app. That was a few years ago even. So the data is, frankly, a little out of date at this point. But even back then, we were seeing 6 to 8 queries across 4 categories per user per day. And obviously that's only grown by now. And back then it was pretty much split up between local information at 22%, fun and entertainment at 21%, general information at 30%, and personal assistant at 27%. Those are sort of the main 4 things that people were doing back in 2016. Of course, a few years have gone by since then, so it's important to remember that, and that this data is not always staying the same, and it is changing, and you need to be aware. But those are 4 critically important categories if you're going to set up anything for voice search. So if you're doing anything with fun and entertainment and or local information, let's say you're promoting shows, or you're promoting, sports matches, or you're promoting whatever it is, any kind of event, whatever it is, that's a perfectly good use of voice search optimization. If you're doing stuff with general information and local information, so if you need like a car mechanic, hours for the car mechanic shop locally, right? So what time is Jim's mechanic shop open on Saturday or whatever in Boise, Idaho, and the voice search should be able to take that and give you a pretty good answer because those are very significant amounts of that kind of questioning is very common in voice search, which means that there's a lot of data, and so the more data Google has, the better it can give you results, and so therefore the more popular a topic is, usually the better or more exact its answers can be. That's really what I wanted to show you about that. And also they suggest here doing things like claiming your by business listing and everything else. There's a number of things in this article to go over, but I really want to show you this about this particular article that they show this graph from KPCB. And again, it's a few years old, but this data has actually stayed fairly consistent in this kind of split. I would say there's a few more things that have to be added to this overall pie now, but generally speaking, those are the 4 big categories you still want to be optimizing for search. And in fact, evidence to that is the fact that these pages, which are top ranked by Google for the answer for this question, okay, is more of a demonstration of what Google is looking for. So even if you have data, as you can see, that's a few years old, you can still rank at the top for it, right? Because the number 1, 2, and I think also number 3 article, well, at least the number 1 and 2 article, they both show the same graph. So they themselves, being top ranked article for this particular topic, are using old data, and they still remain at the top. Not because they keep building massive link campaigns to it, No, that's not the reason. It's because the page is authoritative for a number of reasons and is the voice search result for a whole lot of reasons. And speaking of what those reasons are, let's look now finally at the TLDR. Okay, if this is all too long, and this is a very long article, and it's amazing, by the way, by Backlinko, and it really shows you, based on an amazing study, all kinds of amazing takeaways, and the kind of language and everything else, and the kind of search phrases and devices. And it's a phenomenal page. So I will, of course, make sure, like I said, to include all the links in the description, and you should definitely take a look at this page. But if you don't have time to read this whole article and you just want the hacky sort of cheat sheet to how to do this because you get the bigger picture and you know the concepts, here is how you optimize for Google Home and for other voice search. Right? First of all, number one ingredient, your page should load quickly. The average time that a page should load is 4.6 seconds. That's for voice search. If you are faster than average, you will perform better than average. So try to beat that 4.6 seconds. Always try to have your pages load in under a second if possible, especially if you have a commercial site. So if the average page loads in 4.6 seconds, at the bare minimum, be at that. But beat that as much as possible, because every year that average will improve, and you don't want to get left behind with a slow site that doesn't get indexed in voice search. Number two, it has to be secured with HTTPS. Okay, now HTTPS is not a requirement for voice search. All right, about 1 in 4 search results in voice search come up without HTTPS, but that means the other 3 in 4 use HTTPS, versus about half and half in regular Google search, text search. So if you want to rank for voice search, even though it's not clear why or if Google officially has that policy in place, it's just statistically speaking, 3 out of 4 voice search sites are HTTPS. So if your site is worth anything to you as a business, make sure it's HTTPS, and you will have a better chance of ranking in voice search. Number 3, the page itself should be an FAQ page, right? It should be directly answering something that the question is asking directly. Otherwise, if you have to click a few things to get the answer, that's not going to work. And if it's too long and convoluted, that's not going to work either. It has to directly answer it neatly and easily for the consumer, the visitor, to understand and to digest. Number 4, long form content, right? You can have long form content. You absolutely can. Everyone thinks, oh well, it's an answers page, it has to be short. No. The answer has to be short. There can still be more content on the page. You can do long form content, right? That is absolutely fine. Just make sure it's broken up into the proper sections. Just make sure it's clearly navigable by voice search, so you can jump from section to section easily, so it can easily find things and understand things, how sections are broken up and how images are and what they are and videos and everything else. Number 5 here, contains concise answers, right? Approximately 29 words. They found that the average answer on Google Home or Google Home questions in voice search were 29 words long. Right? So that means that you need to be writing answers that are 29 words long or possibly even shorter. You need to find good copywriters if you're not a good writer yourself. There's a number of places you can go to for that. I'm not going to list all the marketplaces, but you can certainly find a number of marketplaces online to find good copywriters. And basically make sure that your answers are neat and tight. Like I said before, you want to keep the answers neat, in this case like short and precise and to the point. So the same thing goes with this metric here, that it should actually be 29 words on average, and you can make that even shorter and longer to test which one works for you better. Number 6, your answers should be written at a 9th grade level, right? A 9th grade reading level or below, because they found that the preponderance of web pages that have voice search results in the Google index are written at a 9th grade reading level. So if you want the majority of your visitors to have an easier time to read your page, make the language on your page easier to read and understand. If you're writing something very technical and you're not necessarily looking to optimize it for high traffic, you don't really care if you're not optimized necessarily for voice search. But if you're making a voice search page, which is very useful for products and services and sales and marketing, make sure it's easy to read. Right? Don't give people the Constitution or the Magna Carta or the whatever. It's, make it easy. Number 7. The page itself should be highly shareable, right? And the more shareable it is, the more metrics Google sees and in the social area, and that does impact your score, essentially, for your page. Impacts the page authority, the domain authority, that will overall impact your performance in terms of how many exposures you get, how many times you come up in search results for the question. Because the page is shareable. If there's, if it's shareable, Google sees that because they see the metrics that's being shared, and they will promote it more. Right? They want to drive traffic to pages that perform better, pages that are better built and shareable, and all these positive things that they view. Number 8. Ranks in Google desktop search in the top 3 results. Right. So here's the thing: there's only one result for voice search, right? There's one. Like, it's not going to read you all 10 results. It's going to read you the first one. And then the next question you have, it's going to give you the next answer. And if you're not satisfied with the answer you have, you could be more specific and get, dig deeper. But generally speaking, you listen to the first answer. That's what you hear. So what that means is, in order to rank at the top, to be that number 1 voice search, it's kind of obvious, but maybe not entirely, but it's pretty obvious that you should obviously be ranking well in traditional search. Because if you're not ranking well in traditional search, you don't have the elements in place, which almost all of the above, are relevant to web search, right? Not necessarily all of the above, but many of the above are directly relevant to web search, and in a way they all really are, and you can, the case can be made for all of these elements being important one way or the other. So it's important for the page to be well ranked in general, right, for web search. Number 8 is that, and number 9 is that the page appears as a featured snippet. And a featured snippet, in case you don't know, is that thing at the top of the Google search. It's above the ads. It's called SERP 0, and it's considered prime real estate in organic search. Pages that appear in featured snippets are more likely to appear in voice search, again, because they are already seen as authoritative answers, so much so that Google has put them in as a featured snippet. And by being a featured snippet, you're already the authoritative answer that it has selected for the web search, and therefore, if your page is optimized for voice search in all these other ways, and it's a featured snippet, it will obviously encourage Google to use your page as the voice search result as well. And 10, the page should be on an authoritative domain, right, with at least a 70 or greater domain reference from domain score from Ahrefs, right? So if you have a domain relevance score of 70 or more from Ahrefs, or 70 or more from Moz, it could be a little higher, 73 or whatever. But let's say you have, maybe you don't have quite 70. If you have like 60 or 50, well, then work towards improving your site and put these elements in place so that as you increase your domain authority score and you get to 70, you're already hitting the minimum targets, right? So yeah, voice search is not for everyone, right? Because not everyone's going to score on voice search. Not everyone's going to be the number 1 result, obviously. And not everyone has a 70 or above site, right? It would be very, very difficult for most people. If you're not running a business or something, it might be very difficult for you to run your personal website up to a domain score of 70, right? You might not ever get to that with a blog or something. But But if you're running a business and you have a proper marketing thing in place with organic and how to handle Google and everything and other search engines, well then you should be able to get a 70 or more score if you have a serious business that has authoritative information and a quality product or service that can score well. So if you have these 10 elements in place, and thanks again to Backlinko for putting this amazing graph up here, because it really, or infographic, if you will, just a little list here of 10 things. But they did a great job of making this very easy to digest. And again, check out this page, check out the article. It is chock full. I'll just screen through. Look, you can see it is long, and it is full of beautiful charts. But I'm not going to stop and make you watch any of them. I would rather you actually go to the page, and I'm not going to show you the whole thing. Just take a look at the article. It will blow you away. Absolutely chock full of information. We're actually in the middle of doing our 2019 voice search guide, which will be an update to these articles that you've seen here, because as you can see, they're all a little out of date. Actually, Backlinko's, I think, the most optimized, the most up-to-date one. Let's double check that here. It's got that. Yep, Backlinko is the most up-to-date one, but it's still a little out of date. It's about almost a year old, and we think it's time for a refresh for the industry. So we're in the middle of working that out, and when we do, we'll of course put this review in here and give credits to these sites for doing a great job in the past few years covering this topic. And I hope that you find this information very useful, that you can put it to good use for yourself and for your marketing goals and campaigns, and that you have a successful and amazing time. So thanks again for listening. I appreciate everyone liking, sharing, subscribing, commenting, yada, yada, yada. I really do mean that. You guys are the best. Sometimes I feel like the email questions I get about marketing I gain at least as much as you guys do just from having to think about these topics again and bring up the topics for you guys, and I find it very fun and fulfilling thing to do with my time. So thanks for helping make that possible. And until next time, folks, take care.